Hello, friends. You've probably seen on social media, maybe Facebook, Instagram, that I'm doing this series of essays for our Patreon and Substack subscribers. And it's called Lectarot Divina. What in the world does that mean? Well, when I was in seminary, this right here was one of my very favorite books that I picked up. It's called Conformed to His Image: Biblical and Practical Approaches to Spiritual Formation. And there's a lot in this book that I don't really find as helpful anymore, but there's one section in here, and it's in many other books as well, but one section in this book that really made an impact on me when I was in school and has really stuck with me even to today. And that's this part about Lectio Divina. What does that mean? Well, basically, Lectio Divina is a spiritual practice where you take a passage of the Bible, scripture. You take a verse, you take a story, whatever, and you read it, and you read it, and you read it, and you read it, and you read it over and over and over again. And then you just sit with it. You sit quietly with it. And you imagine that you're one of the characters in the story. You try to imagine, the sights and the sounds and the smells of the story. And then you ask God, you ask the Spirit, you ask Jesus, whatever, show me something in this story that I haven't seen before. Use this story as your megaphone to speak something into my life, into this situation, into this whatever that I'm in. Help me to see you in this thing today, right here, right now. And then use your imagination, right? And you try to see what's in this, what is jumping off the page at me, what idea, what word, what thought, what character, whatever, what is leaping off the page and grabbing me today. And that's Lectio Divina. So that said, I used to do that every morning. I used to sit with the Bible passage every morning with my coffee, and I would do just that. I would sit with it, meditate with it. I would spend 30, sometimes 45, an hour with a particular passage. I'd write something in my journal, whatever. That's what I did. And these days I still do that every once in a while. But I've also mixed my Bible reading in the morning with tarot cards, which has got me into some trouble. But if you've been following along with the podcast, you know that I've had some tarot readers on the show before. We've talked about the history of tarot. We've talked about the many ways that the cards interact with the stories of the Bible, because the Bible is filled with stories that date, hundreds and then thousands of years ago, because these stories are stories with themes that are wired into us as humans. Stories of good and evil, stories of love and generosity and hate, and the struggles of just being a human being and trying to walk through this very visible life with a very invisible God or divine force or whatever it is you want to call it. And so those same themes that come up in the stories of the Bible come up in the stories of these cards, right? So if you look at these cards, each one of these cards has a different person in a different scene doing a different thing. And so what I do with these cards sometimes in the morning is I'll pull just one of these cards, and just like I would with the Bible, I wonder, what is the story of this card? If I pull this card and I have this guy here, like this knight, I'll sit with this card and I'll look at this horse, look at this knight, look at the cup that he's holding, the background that he's in, the movement of the horse, the movement of the knight, and I'll wonder, what is his story? What is it in this card that's jumping off the page at me or jumping off the card at me? And I'll sit with it and I'll meditate on it and I'll ask God, I'll ask Jesus, I'll ask the divine, show me something in this that you want to speak to me today. And so many times the thought that will come to me from the card is a thought that also parallels to the Bible, maybe even a particular passage of scripture that I read on that same day, or maybe in that same week or within the few days of pulling that card. And so I had this idea called Lectarot Divina, instead of Lectio Divina, what I told you before, Lectarot Divina, sitting with a card and a Bible story and seeing how these two things might dance together, interact with each other, and inform one another. So every week I'm reading a passage, a gospel, the scripture, the gospel from the lectionary. Lectionary is a kind of a way of organized reading of the scriptures that is used by a lot of churches. So like on any given week, churches around the world will all be reading from the very same passage if they're using the lectionary as their guide. And so I thought that would be a fun way to just kind of open, instead of pulling a random verse, let's just go with whatever the lectionary says is the Bible passage for that week. Let's go with it. So I'm taking the gospel story, sitting with it, meditate on it, right? Lectio Divina. But then I'm also pulling a random tarot card next to that story and seeing how that card might dance with, interact, or inform that story in the Bible, or how the Bible story might inform something on that card. And I've done 2 of them so far, and they've been a lot of fun. And I just thought I would share this with my Patreon and Substack subscribers because I talk about it a lot, but I haven't really shown it to anybody. So I thought this would be a fun way to kind of start getting these ideas and these thoughts out there, because I do have a book idea brewing in my head that I might do something with this down the road. So I thought it would be fun to kind of organize some thoughts, get some examples of this kind of material out there, and see with whom it might land. So like Lectarot Divina, if that's something you're interested in reading more about, please, you can subscribe on Substack or Patreon. Patreon starts at $3 a month, goes all the way up to like $100 a month. Then you have Substack is $7 a month. You can subscribe in either one of those places. And also, if you really want this kind of stuff, you want to be like involved in it, you can't swing $3 a month, doesn't matter. Just send me a message. No questions asked. I'll just send you the material, put you on the list, and I'll just send you the material with everybody else when they go out. And yeah, so that's it. Lectarot Divina. People have asked me, what is this? Why are you doing this? Wanted to give you a short little explanation of what it is and invite you to join the fun. Thanks so much. Later.